Hi there, good morning to you. You're welcome to Newsroom here on GHOne TV. I am Lily Mohammed. Coming up, over 2,000 unaccounted ECG containers traced to Tema port. We'll seek answers from the Energy Ministry shortly. Also coming up, Attorney General fires back at suspended Chief Justice, vehemently denying any leak of the removal proceedings. Minority to summon Foreign Affairs Minister over Washington, D.C. visa scandal as MPs reconvene in Parliament today. Ahead in business, we assess Ghana's readiness to re-enter the international bond market following President Mahama's latest announcement. And rising public outrage as Zimbabwe's leader approves a new radio levy targeting motorists. Hello again. Now, a joint investigation team comprising officials from the National Security, the Ministry of Transport, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority and Customs has traced 2,637 containers belonging to the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, at the Tema port. The containers, previously believed to be missing container cables and other essential equipment meant for power distribution. In March this year, the Minister of Energy and Green Transition, GHOne was informed by ECG officials that 2,491 containers were uncleared and unaccounted for at the Tema port. The minister subsequently set up a committee chaired by Professor Innocent Senyo Akwa to investigate the matter. Surprisingly, the committee's investigations revealed that the number of containers was even higher, 2,637 instead of the 1,300 initially suspected to be missing. A breakdown of these containers and where they've been traced to and how many we have recovered so far. Now, at the Ghana Port and Harbours Authority terminals, we traced 1,237 of these ECG containers. At the Meridian Port Services, MPS, 860 containers. At the National Security premises, 272. At the Amaris Terminal, there's 194. And at the Atlas Manufacturing Terminal, there was 20 containers so far. Joining us via phone for a conversation is spokesperson and head of communications for the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, Richmond Roxton. Richmond, thank you very much for joining us. Good morning to you.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Sorry.
Right. Now, for anyone wondering how over 2,000 containers which could previously not be found have now been found, tell us how the committee did its search to find them.
Let me take you back. In December 2024, after the election, there was a transition team. The transition team had briefing that ECD had 3,000 containers at the port which had not been cleared. The new administration took charge. The current energy minister was sworn into office, and the briefing he had was that the ECG had about 2,500 containers. For the discrepancies and the information he was gathering, he caused a committee to be established to ascertain the veracity of the claim and then to also look for the containers which were not accounted for. The initial committee set up its report was that about 1,100 containers were found, physically identified, 1,300 not accounted for. This prompted an interagency investigation to be conducted with National Security, the Ghana Port Authority, the and then Ministry of Transport, as well as GRA Customs. The committee has been able to trace 2,637 containers. Currently, the ministry is in possession of 2,583 containers. That's physical containers that the committee found. So that is where we are today.
Now, in what states did we find these containers? And did we find anything in them, cables whatsoever? What were in these containers?
The containers are various materials. As it is now, we know that some of them are cables and other materials that the NCD needs. But the Chief of Staff has directed an inventory to be taken to ascertain the content of the containers. Even though physically identify the containers, an inventory will be taken, and then the details of the items contained therein will be recorded and then disclosed.
Does that mean that so far we don't know what are in these containers? Is that the case?
No, so far what it is that there is a document from UTC that will give you an idea that these containers contain these materials, but the containers have not been opened to be able to ascertain and take inventory. The document may show one or two, but when you do the physical count, you may get something else. That is why the Chief of Staff has directed that this should be done. You know, the matter is under investigation. It's not just regular investigations. It has to do with criminal investigations as well. And the former managing director's statement has been taken by National Security. And then some senior staff of ECG have been asked to step aside. Other people have been spoken to as well concerning this matter. So that is where we are.
Now, because of the number of days these containers had been at the port, obviously the country has incurred demurrage costs. How are we going to offset these costs? What's the process like? And where are we on that?
The Chief of Staff has directed the parties involved at ECG and port to reconcile the figures and then agree on a roadmap. And this also brings to bear the procurement practices that ECG has been engaged in over the years. So the minister has done is that he has directed that the system where ECG will procure goods and then the supplier will dump it at the port for ECG to collect should not happen again. Furthermore, what the minister has directed is that ECG should not procure any non-essential commodity or materials anymore, and that the board should take a second look at the procurement policy of ECG in general. These practices by the previous management has got us where we are to the extent that data, we are struggling with data when it comes to these containers. But the other firm assurance of government, the Ministry of Energy, the matter has been referred to the Attorney General's security agencies as well. And then we expect that the Attorney General will guide us moving forward when it comes to prosecution.
Okay, but what's the latest on the committee's work? Has it submitted any reports so far to the ministry?
Yes, I mean, the committee has submitted an initial report, and in view of this initial report, this information has been provided to the general public.
But in the findings, there were containers at the national security. What's the latest update on that?
They are all in charge. So the containers, in fact, initially, what the national security did was when some containers were found, steps were taken to secure these containers. 272 were evacuated, but eventually a decision was taken to look at the whole container issue. So that's how come was put on hold. But all these containers are in safe hands of the National Security and Security Services.
All right, Richmond, thank you very much for speaking to us. That's Richmond Roxon. He's the head of communications and the spokesperson for the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition. Meanwhile, the Member of Parliament for Okaikwe Central, Patrick Yabwama, has charged the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, GHOne Abdullahi Janapo, to brief Parliament about the missing containers. This follows revelation by the ministry. Over 2,000 of the containers made up of cables have been recovered at the Tema ports. Addressing the media, Patrick Yabwama questioned the basis for the minister's public announcement of the missing containers when investigations had not been concluded. According to Patrick Yabwama, the containers, per what he has gathered, were misplaced and not missing as the minister had asserted. has denied allegations of leaking documents related to the removal proceedings against suspended Chief Justice Gertrude Saki Tokuno, firing back at what he describes as baseless claims. Justice Tokuno, in additional processes filed at the Supreme Court, alleged that her fundamental rights are being violated in ongoing impeachment proceedings. She cited unreasonable searches, denial of access to family members, and restrictions on the use of phones and laptops, describing the conditions as mentally torturous and degrading in breach of her constitutional protections. But in an affidavit opposing her request for an interlocutory injunction, the Attorney General's office dismissed the claims as misleading. The Attorney General accused the Chief Justice herself of consistently leaking case processes to the public, contrary to the constitutional mandate that such proceedings be held in camera to protect the dignity of all parties involved. The Attorney General argued that while the suspended Chief Justice may choose to waive her personal rights to privacy, she cannot unilaterally waive those of the judiciary or witnesses. On the issue of records from consultative meetings between the Council of State and the President, the Attorney General insists that proper documentation has been made available to persons legally entitled to receive them. The legal battle continues as the Attorney General maintains that constitutional safeguards must be observed to protect the judiciary's integrity. Mutala Enusa for more on this. Captain, what more can you add at this time?
Well, Lily, it looks like things are shaping up perfectly for the encounter tomorrow, for the battle tomorrow, for the battle of weights, I must say. Tomorrow, the parties have at the Supreme Court to argue their case out. But like you rightly indicated, the Chief Justice had indeed also filed a supplementary affidavit in support to the earlier affidavit that she has filed at the Supreme Court that has actually elicited some response from the office of the Attorney General, and clearly from the affidavit in opposition filed by the Attorney General, which has been filed yesterday, point to the fact that some very interesting issues or answers have been pointed out, especially with regards to the in-camera sitting. The CJ makes the point that there's a case of this nature ought to be dealt with in public. The AG or the position of government is to the effect that constitutional provisions ought to be followed. It is not only in situations where the issue of Chief Justice comes up that the matter ought to be heard in camera. Other justices of the Superior Court are also affected by this particular provision in the 1992 Constitution. We note that the Lady Chief Justice also raised issues about the fact that leakages of these documents were being made by government. What the AG's opposition indicate was to the effect that the Lady Chief Justice has consistently been giving out issues within what has been happening in camera hearing and all of that. And for them, those who are legally mandated to receive the petitions, same have been done. And so if there's anybody to blame for the public release, or for the release of these issues, petition, details of the petition, it should not be any other person than the Lady Chief Justice herself. And so these are some of the things that have been playing out, Lily. But what is clear is that it looks like the parties are shaping out. Things are shaping out perfectly for the Supreme Court to hear both parties hopefully tomorrow in relation to their interlocutory injunction filed by the Lady Chief Justice.
Now, Captain, after this, then what?
So what is clear is that the decision of the Supreme Court will then determine what actually happens within the committee's hearing. You note that one of the issues that the Chief Justice is asking for this interlocutory injunction is because of the membership of the committee sitting on the matter. And for the committee, they have not received any express orders from the court from the Supreme Court to stop its work. So they are continuing with the proceedings. So the outcome of tomorrow's court case by way of the Supreme Court hearing the matter will determine whether the committee proceed or continues with their hearings, or it will be truncated until such time that the main case that the Chief Justice had, for which reason she's seeking for interlocutory injunction, is dealt with. So tomorrow, would give clear ideas whether the committee should continue or they be stopped until further notice.
Right. Murtala, thank you very much. That's Murtala Yunusa. He is our legal affairs correspondent. But let's get the constitutional leg of this and get further understanding. We've been joined by Raymond Bidima. He is a constitutional lawyer. Thank you very much for joining us, Counsel. Good morning to you.
Good morning, madam. How are you?
I'm doing well. I trust you're doing well too.
By God's grace, it is always a pleasure to be on your platform.
Great. Now, let's look at the supplementary affidavit by the CJ. She says that her rights are being trampled upon. She's been subjected to mental torture. How serious is this? She's still the Chief Justice. Even though she's been suspended, there's somebody acting in her stead.
That's correct. Let me take the opportunity to say a very good morning to your cherished viewers across the country. It is important to appreciate well what are the constitutional rights she's talking about. Of course, constitutional rights are, of course, an unalienable right of every individual. And by virtue of the fact that you are a human, there are a bundle of rights that you enjoy. And those rights are not supposed to be taken away from you in any way. And if you go into the history of this country, you will appreciate that some time past, there were violation of those rights of the individual. For instance, the right to the liberty to move about, your right to live, your right to be accorded with the dignity, your right to, as the case may be, not to be discriminated upon by virtue of either your race, your gender, your political affiliation, and all those. These are the bundle of rights that every Ghanaian or every human being, by virtue of the fact that you are a human being, you come with them, and they are to be protected at all times. Now, if you look back to our history as a country, you realize in one celebrated case, which of course most of the constitutional students will say that it was a June day for Ghana, is in the case of Ray Akoto, where the rights of some 14 members were violated, and that is the basis for which the framers of the 1992 Constitution, when they were framing it, they have actually given one chapter, that is chapter 5, towards the Constitution. So the rights as are protected by the Constitution are enshrined in chapter 5 of the 1992 Constitution, and under no circumstance should those rights be trampled upon by any person, neither the president, the legislature, or the judiciary. Now, the question as to whether or not the matters complained about are actually the rights which are not to be trampled upon is one of the questions to be determined hopefully tomorrow. And if I read carefully what her ladyship, the Chief Justice, put across, one of the things she complained about is the high security venue for her trial, as the case may be. And as to whether being put at a very high security place will be one of the violation of your right is another thing that the Supreme Court will be talking about. For me, I feel that in that regard, taking you there maybe is just to protect your person or to protect the integrity of the proceedings. Now, another thing she mentioned about is the decision of the committee not to allow her family or not to allow her to come into the place with the gadget.
Now, Counsel, you're talking about the high security zone. For somebody who superintends over the third arm of government, should there be any qualms about a security zone? If
they put you or they take her to that high security place, for me, it may be for the protection of even the members who are also hearing, the protection of herself and protection of the integrity of the process, as the case may be. So I don't think that taking a, is it intimidation? And will intimidation be a violation of her rights of a sort? That's another thing to be determined. For me, again, taking you to that place, and again, she goes there with all her lawyers. She is afforded the opportunity also to go there with all her lawyers. And as to whether such a high security place will amount to an infringement on her constitutionally protected right is another thing. But I don't think so.
let's talk about
also about not the committee not allowing her actually to come into the hearing with her gadget like the laptops and that of her phones and those sort of stuffs. Again, I don't know the moral, the procedures that have been adopted for the usage of this committee. The modalities that have been adopted by this committee, I'm not privy to it. But as to whether that could be an infringement would depend on the modality that has been adopted by the committee. And at any sitting or hearing of such, there are always procedures that are adopted.
Right. Let's talk about the argument that the CJ says, I'm waiving my right for an income as constitutionally mandated under Article 146. The Attorney General argues that, well, you can waive your rights, but you cannot waive the rights of the judiciary, the witnesses involved.
Frankly speaking, one cannot seek to waive what the Constitution prescribes to be done. Then, in that case, it will seek to state that that person is trying to override the dictate of the Constitution. And again, we practice the supremacy of the Constitution, and no one is above the law. And I don't think this is a novel situation. This Article 146 matter has been determined in a lot of, and has even been used by even the immediate past government in removal of some judges of the High Court, which are those judges are also part of the superior judges of the Superior Court of Adjudicator. And what was the procedure? Was there any instance where the constitutional provision has been waived by any of the parties? If no, why now? So for me, I feel that she should allow. And again, the fact that you waive does not mean that the judiciary should also waive what they ought to have done under the circumstance. And the circumstance provided it should be done in camera.
So what if the court rules on this particular interlocutory injunction? What does this do to the case?
What she's seeking is to injunct. An injunction means to stop the process of her removal. So if that is the ruling of the court, then so be it, they will have to abrogate the procedure altogether, and then we see what goes on next. But I again, taking into consideration the consistency at which the Supreme Court has judged in this matter, I don't think that you need any soothsayer to tell you the outcome of this petition or this injunction application.
What will the outcome of this particular case do to both the judiciary and the executive arms of government?
Should deepen our democratic credentials as a country. Look, I had a singular opportunity to read the judgment that was delivered in the case of Vincent Asefua and that of the Attorney General. And Madam, the thumbs up to the Supreme Court, they did justice to the case. Reading it has actually given me that confidence that the judiciary is at work.
Okay. Counsel, thank you very much for speaking to us. That's Raymond Bidema. He is a constitutional lawyer, giving his thoughts on the affidavit by the CJ and the counter by the Attorney General. Now, reacting to the development, a member of the opposition New Patriotic Party's communication team, Kwesi Kwarteng Esquire, claims the NDC government is determined to remove the Chief Justice at all cost.
For me, if you look at how things are going, it is clear that the John Mahama administration is bent on removing the Chief Justice. Nothing will stop them. We ask them to proceed. They should finish whatever they want to do. But you see, on hindsight, I've always maintained that politicians, it appears we do not learn.
How so?
One of the reasons why a lot of people lost trust in the President Akufo-Addo's administration has also to do with how he handled some of these removals. People felt that even without admitting that they've committed some offense in those respective institutions, maybe other form of sanctions could have meted out to them. with the whole idea of protecting the image and the independence of such institutions. Reference has been made to that of the Madame Charlotte Osei and Mr. Dumlevo.
Now, in a rebuttal, lawyer and member of the NDC communications team, Theophilus Jimaga Jr., rejected the claims. He insisted that the party has no agenda to oust the Chief Justice, adding that if she's innocent, the legal process will clear her.
NDC as a party has no interest in seeing the removal of the CJ. The petitioners have petitioned. No matter the noise we make, the law is the law. Let the process continue. If she's exonerated, she comes back. If she's not exonerated, she doesn't come back. But let me conclude by saying that President Mahama's handling of Ghana so far is so stellar that you cannot compare it to any of the part of the 8 years that we have.
Let's find out what your thoughts are on this matter on our various social media pages. Nama Akwa joins us with those thoughts and comments. Nama, what are people saying?
Well, Lily, for the last week or so, it has been judiciary's cocoa season, and today is no different as we are still talking about the CJ. Let's go to Facebook, where Dramani says the snake that refuses to die by the hit of a stick will definitely die when its head is off the body. Tete adds, not easy, you're going home without all your retirement packages. Anyone in her shoes will put up some fight. Joe Doe says, Mahama should tell this woman in her face, go home. What is all this? Then we have our next comment, a resignation letter will save us all this drama. Then Cog says the woman is simply being misled by Godfred Yeboah Dami. We also have Osman from frying pan to fire. Must you be CJ at all costs? The signs are very clear. President John Mahama is not ready to work with you. Oba says the one who gave you that position as CJ is gone. Hey, this woman. We also have Kofi B. Fight, ma. Fight. Don't go easy. Cry. We move over to Instagram. Calvin says this woman has the gene of NPP in her. You all remember Kenneth Foriata? When we asked him to leave the finance ministry, chairman said no. Same thing with this woman. We don't want you. Please, simply resign to save us time. I am success says I love this woman. She is the... We also have... Okay, we've read that one. Dr. Darko said, that's a woman and more. She ain't going to go down without a fight. And that is what we have time for. Continue to send us your messages on Instagram, on Facebook, and on X, formerly Twitter. My name is Nanama Akwa. Let's see in the coming days what happens moving forward. Lily, back over to you.
Thank you very much, Nama, for those thoughts and comments. Let's move on and do other stories. The Ashanti Regional Chair of the opposition New Patriotic Party, Bernard Enchibuesiako, popularly known as Chairman GHOne, is expected to report again to the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service today, May 27, 2025 at 3 p.m. Chairman GHOne voluntarily turned himself in at the CID headquarters on a Monday, May 26, following a failed attempt to arrest him on Friday, May 23. A press release signed by Superintendent Joseph Benefodakwa, head of the Public Affairs Unit of the CID, stated that Chairman GHOne was cautioned on 3 allegations, namely engaging in mining operations without a license, polluting water bodies, and entering a forest reserve without authorization. The statement noted that the NPP regional chair cooperated fully with investigators, gave a statement, and was granted bail. He is required to return to the CID at 3 p.m. today as investigations continue. Now, lawyers representing Kwabna Edubohene and others led by Samuel Atachin have denied claims that their clients have approached the Attorney General with proposals for plea bargaining. Justice John Eugene Nyantinyadu ruled that any discussions on plea bargaining can only commence after the Attorney General files the required disclosures. Counsel for the accused Samuel Atachin did not oppose the prosecution's request, but he has denied that any such plea bargaining proposals have been made yet.
No. There's nothing on the table for us to plea bargain. What do you make of the delay of the prosecution in filing the disclosures as of now?
I'm not too sure. Maybe the issue will be with the Attorney General. Let's give him the space to prosecute the case. And let's respect the fact that if an Attorney General wants an adjournment, then we shouldn't challenge it.
Also, it's curious that the judge would make the case of plea bargaining if neither the AG or prosecution or yourself.
Because it's a variable. It's a variable in the case management process. Yeah, it's a variable. So he's thinking elastic, but we've not made any overtures relating to plea bargaining.
Is it because you have not seen the volume of evidence against your client by way of prosecution or filing disclosure processes?
It's out of the way for one measure, and we keep saying that people do not understand, and I don't want to do a media trial. That this case has national security ramifications.
The last time we were in court, your client had been kept in bail because, on remand because of a separate case, the Ghana Water Limited. Have you so far been briefed? What is the issue with that?
Well, it's also gotten to do with Ghana Water Company Limited seeking help from national security, give them all the surveillance and mechanism so that we could police the sanctity of water in the realm. So that's another national security matter.
So nothing wrong by your client there?
Well, at the moment he's very innocent by the terms of the Constitution, and to prove it otherwise. But what is happening now, I'm afraid people don't understand. It's deeper than what is being presented.
In other news, the Member of Parliament for Kaikwe Central and member of the Foreign Affairs Committee in Parliament, Patrick Yabwama, has demanded immediate reversal of the decision by Minister for Foreign Affairs Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa to shut down Ghana's embassy in Washington, D.C. over some corrupt activities. The minister, in announcing the decision yesterday, indicated the move is to allow for a thorough investigation into the matter, where a link had been created on the official portal of the embassy to redirect clients to a private firm. Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa revealed staff of the embassy have all been sent home as a result. Addressing the media in Parliament, Patrick Yabwama charged the minister to be tactful in handling the matter. According to him, the matter could have been handled without shutting down the embassy, denying clients services of the facility. Our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Ibrahim Alassane joins us via Zoom with more. But first, let's hear from Patrick Yabwama.
Oh, 2 minutes of Sadia. Now, so, oh, yes, I did now. So, did Ghana and you Yam so a Tunsaniani. Now, so, actually, Pana Sukra, I was set at Jumakuno, a cost year, Juma. Say, Yatum, be a no be war, Jumadi or Ghana. Why, Jenny, 1 week leave be an baby. The visa won't tied to so we be doing vacation and over be in business meeting in your Ghana. They say you are to embassy, you ain't me issue visa. The Benny baby embassy, ama omo I say omo kwaji visa and I say umkoye juma set up department review. In the same baby, be there. Why do they say anchor department no? Corona assemble for one, and so you bet you almost in China immediately. Go for a couple of Jumana embassy now to a so because the first time in Sensemesi embassy, Semba question ye dimrika to embassy meaning ubi uncle fie ya too. Hey, you work in one of the biggest posts in the world. That's Washington. What would the Americans think of Ghana? What would the other embassies think of Ghana? Yent me handle a we are seeing us. Your IT department. Akoji visa fee ya to your embassy. I think I'll say I'm very careful. Say you typically can't be public. They say any investigation we and he said visa for Frosia and then you come in my to your embassy. You catch a visa for 9 and I said, Obi a
So So that's the Member of Parliament for Kaikui Central, Patrick Yabuama, essentially saying that the Minister's act was not done tactfully. He should have rather suspended the people involved in it and then further investigations rather than closing down the entire embassy. Now, a member of the Convention People's Party, Kwame Jantua, is calling on the Foreign Affairs Minister to provide full clarity on the closure of Ghana's embassy in Washington, D.C., while acknowledging the seriousness of the alleged visa fraud.
With regards to this particular issue, do we know the full facts of the situation?
Not
we don't.
The full facts, yeah.
Do we know whether it is widespread within the embassy? We don't know. So, for me, not unless we know what the entire situation, let's tread cautiously. Yes, if it is a case that is isolated to a particular department in the embassy, then you would ask the question, why shut the entire embassy down? But if it's a case where it seems to have spread through the embassy, where corruption is taking place, where staff of the embassy are doing things that are untoward, then perhaps the minister would be in the right position to say, let's shut down and investigate. Maybe the minister should come back and clarify better for us. You see, this is where sometimes it is good to give the information and the entire information for the general public to understand what actually is going on. So that when certain actions are taken, people can align with those actions. There are Ghanaians who have been hired by the previous government. And this is now going to be used as probably a yardstick to clear people out. So maybe the minister should come back again and give us detailed information.
Let's now focus on health. The Ghana Health Service has confirmed 10 new cases of monkeypox, bringing the total number of confirmed cases as of 26th May 2025 to 19, with 5 on admission. 6 regions have now recorded cases as the spread continues to surge. The Western region is leading with 7 cases, followed by Greater Accra region with 6 confirmed cases, while the Volta region has joined with 2 cases. The Western, North and Northern regions have recorded 1 case each, bringing the cumulative cases to 19, with no death recorded so far. Over 180 suspected mpox cases have been investigated so far across the country as part of ongoing surveillance efforts. Currently, all the 16 regions have reported suspected infections. The spread has sparked renewed concerns about the spread of viral disease across the country, although no death has been recorded so far. Ghana recorded its mpox case this year, February, with 1 case and later increased to 3 as of May 15. Let's get more on this with Dr. Dennis Lai. He is the Deputy Director of Surveillance at the Ghana Health Service. Doc, thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much for having me, and good afternoon to you and your listeners.
Right. Should we be worried? 10 new cases.
Thank you very much. Again, I think I've made this point earlier that for us in public health, we don't want any outbreak at all. And so every outbreak is of concern to us, and particularly for diseases that are easily spread, it's something that we're worried about. And so yes, once there's an outbreak, it is a concern for all of us. And I think that we should all bring our hands on deck to see how best we can be able to curtail this outbreak.
Now, these new confirmed cases, are these from the already 180 suspected ones, or these are entirely new ones that we are recording?
So I think I mentioned also in earlier discussions that we have a surveillance system in the country that is continuously looking out for these diseases that we have prioritized, one of which is Mpox. And so the 188, the suspected cases we've had for this year, over 200 suspected cases we've had for this year, are actually not from this month of May when we reported these current cases. They are actually cases from the beginning of the year that were suspected. So the surveillance system is continuously monitoring to make sure that if these cases ever come up, we are able to pick them. So as of the 25th of May, for example, we had a total of 207 suspected cases, as you rightly said in your introduction, and from all 16 regions. So that surveillance goes on, and that is how we are able to detect these cases. Of course, in the midst of this outbreak, we will see a further increase in suspected cases, given the sensitization and the alertness that will enhance alertness that will come from this outbreak.
Should we treat this as an epidemic?
I think that this is nomenclature that is sometimes used probably inappropriately. An outbreak is when you are reporting cases either in excess of what you normally see or for places where the disease is not usually seen. One case may be considered an outbreak. Epidemic is not nomenclature we would use in this situation.
Okay.
So we have an outbreak of Mpox cases, and that is what how we have to look at it.
Okay. But going forward, what then should the public do so we can contain the spread of this?
Thank you very much. Given that we have it in quite a number of regions now, 6 in all, and given how easy the disease spreads, and let me just rehash the modes of transmission. The first one is direct person-to-person contact, physical contact of exposed body parts for persons who have the rash. So any direct contact with somebody who has a rash can result in the disease being transmitted. The second one is any material, whether clothing or instruments, anything that the person with the rash may have touched or has come into contact with, or for example, lying on a bed and some of the rash discharges fluids onto the sheet. If somebody lies on that bed or touches any surface that those fluids or discharges from that person has come into contact with, that can also result in a person getting the infection. There's also what is called face-to-face transmission.
Why?
Or droplets through speaking when a person is talking. That is also possible, as we saw for COVID, where people can just transmit the virus through talking or singing or other forms of actions that would result in the production of droplets. And so these are the main modes of transmission, and the public must know this. Once anybody has the symptoms, the rash, please take precautions and make sure that you don't share anything with anybody.
Absolutely.
Including and then also report to a health facility. Such persons would also have to be in isolation so that they don't come into contact with other persons, potentially to spread the disease. For others who are well, who don't have the disease, let's also take the necessary precautions and ensure that we don't come into contact with people who are showing these symptoms. I have to add this caution that there are instances where the symptoms may not start with a rash. And so if we are overly focused on just the rash, we may also potentially get infected by other people who may start showing other symptoms first.
Rightfully noted. Thank you very much. That's Dr. Dennis Odailai. He's the Deputy Director of Surveillance at the Ghana Health Service. Newsroom takes a breather here. I'm back shortly. Hello again, this is Nishim here on GHOne TV. I am Lily Mohammed. In Business Brief this afternoon, President John Dramani Mahama has revealed that work is underway to reopen Ghana's bond market. Speaking at the 9th CU Summit in Accra, he stated that a process is being undertaken in collaboration with the IMF, development partners, the Ghana Stock Exchange and local banks.
Despite these challenges, I remain optimistic. Ghana has what it takes to recover, not by repeating the past mistakes, but by learning from it and innovating for the future. Let me outline 8 key pillars of the economic reset that we envisage. Number 1 is completing the IMF program with discipline. We'll continue the discipline in government expenditure and borrowing and work to achieve all targets under the extended credit fund with a program with the IMF. We expect to conclude the 4th review of the IMF program in June 2025 with a target to exit at the end of the program in 2026. And thereafter, we'll participate in Article 4 consultations and adopt the policy support instrument framework, signaling Ghana's return to responsible, non-borrowing engagement with the fund.
Let's engage the Associate Director and Financial Advisory at Deloitte, Dennis Brown Vazum. Mr. Brown, thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon to you. President Mahama says we are looking at reopening our bond market. Concerns have been raised about our debt. debt repayment capacity. How do we address these?
Yeah, good afternoon to your listeners and viewers. Yes, I also heard the president yesterday, and clearly it tells you the government is poised to return to the bond market. And he actually mentioned it covers both the domestic and foreign bonds. In terms of sustainability and repayment, yes, we've had concerns in time past, but if you heard him clearly, he's looking at learning from the past mistakes to ensure that we improve greatly on that front. How do we do that? By continuing to improve our macroeconomic environment, as we've seen, at least since the beginning of this year, we've seen relative stability and we've seen improvement in some key economic parameters, including inflation, exchange rate, etc. This we also heard from Bank of Ghana's governor that has boosted confidence in investors significantly. So we seem to be on a good path, and we need to persist, to continue to boost investor confidence. Basically, what you are doing is going to investors to ask them to place a bet on you when you get to the bond market. And if they have no concerns that you'll be able to repay the loan, then they are going to, give you the loan at significantly lower rates, which will then improve sustainability in terms of repayment. Secondly, we also need to look at where we invest these loans, right? And I think he mentioned it slightly in the speech that we should be looking at investing in the productive segments of our economy and into self-paying projects, which is very key. So that when we have borrowed those funds, we should plan more towards investing in projects that will generate revenue to repay these loans so that we can reduce reliance on our already weak tax handles. We know that tax revenues are not, a very bright spot for us. And so the plan is to ensure that you invest in projects that will repay these loans by themselves, and also to target strategic and productive segments of the economy to invest these loans. Another thing we should look at, or we can look at, is to, look at options for more concessionary loans. Yes, it's more difficult because Ghana is now classified as a lower middle income. It's very difficult to now get cheaper loans out there, but there are still a few sources that government can explore to see if we can get, cheaper loans from these external sources, which would also improve sustainability in terms of the repayment capacity. Also, to rationalize our reliance on FX. So we talk about both domestic and foreign, debts, which means Eurobond, it may be coming back. Now, the main issue with Eurobond is that the loans are contracted in USD and they are paid in USD as well. But typically, these loans are invested in an economy that is generating revenue in Ghana city. So the FX risk is always there. And when we are faced with, significant repayment challenges, it ushers us into.
Okay, thank you very much. That's Dennis Brown. He's Director, Associate Director and Financial Advisory at Deloitte. That's it for the business brief. Up next is the latest update in sports.
Hi there, I am Nana Ama Ajima. Now, GFA President Keto Kweku has acknowledged the recent ups and downs in the Black Stars' performances, but believes the team is showing positive signs of improvement. Ghana went 6 matches without victory in the 2024 African Cup of Nations qualifiers, failing to qualify for the first time in 2 decades. The team has, however, shown promise after back-to-back victories over Chad and Madagascar in the 2026 World Cup qualifiers.
I think that the confidence of the team is on the rise. I think that the Tinker team, led by Otto, have learned big lessons. I think that the Tinker team, led by Otto and supported by Wilfred Schaefer and Desmond Ofe and the rest of the guys, are ready to do the extra to ensure that we make it to the Mundial. And all they need at this minute is the support of Ghana and Ghanaians. And I think that Ghana spoke very loudly during the last window, and Ghana will speak even much better and stronger during the September window.
Now, head coach of the Black Stars, Otuwado, has stated that the Unity Games is a big test for his team ahead of the World Cup qualifier games in September. Speaking at a pre-match conference ahead of tomorrow's game, the Gaffer stressed the importance of the Unity Games.
I think if all the culture meets, it's a big festival. It's very, very nice to be here, and surely we are using this opportunity to do further tests, to test our players, to see our players on a very, very high level. And we're happy that we are getting this opportunity. And for us, it's surely a good test for the upcoming World Cup qualifying games in September.
Otuwado also spoke about the rivalry between Ghana and Nigeria ahead of their game tomorrow. He emphasized the historic intensity of matches between the two nations and how it fuels both teams to perform at their best.
I think everyone knows what it's about. It's a friendly game, but it's not really a friendly game. So we know what it's about, and we want our people to be proud of us, and we want our people to talk from a certain perspective. And surely it's always about who has the better team, and sometimes margins can decide the outcome of.
On international front, new Brazil coach Carlo Ancelotti said he is honored and proud to lead the best and target winning the 2026 World Cup. The 65-year-old was unveiled as Brazil boss in a news conference at the Brazil Football Federation headquarters. The Italian joins Brazil, having been Real Madrid manager for the past 4 years. He has won the Champions League on 3 occasions and the La Liga title twice over 2 spells in charge. That is all for sports here. Back to you, Lily.
Thank you very much for that sports update. Let's bring you what's happening on the foreign front. On the foreign front, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa has signed into law a contentious bill that requires all motorists to buy a radio license before acquiring vehicle insurance. There has been an outcry from some motorists as they will now have to pay $92 annually in order to listen to the radio in their vehicles. The introduction of the measure is part of a plan to widen revenue sources for the state broadcaster, but critics say the license fee is too high, especially given the difficult economic situation. And that's it for the news. I am Lily Mohammed. On behalf of the entire team led by Emmanuel Ejabin, we say thank you very much for watching. For more news updates, kindly log on to starfm.com.gh. Good afternoon to you.